Hi, this is Rondlin, and this is my first real video for my channel. The topic for today is making the decision to transition. So we'll talk a little bit about why you should or shouldn't do it, what to expect, and maybe we'll talk a little bit about what the steps are. Okay, so first of all, you think you're ready for transitioning. Now in other videos, I'm sure what you've heard is somebody saying, well, it was this or kill myself. Well, it doesn't have to be quite that desperate. There are a lot of ways you kill yourself, and that's spiritually and behaviorally and a lot of other ways too. I never felt like I had to get a gun and put a bullet through my head when I made the decision to transition. In fact, let me tell you where my decision was made. I was about 43, and I was in my doctor's office, and he was telling me that my blood pressure was off the charts, that I was pre-diabetic, very close to being diabetic, and he basically said that I had 2 years till I had a stroke or a heart attack. I could take my pick unless I made radical changes in my life. And it was that instant when it dawned on me that I was killing myself through neglect. I was 260 pounds, way overweight. As he had found out, I was going into diabetes, and I had blood pressure so high he gave me medication on the spot when he checked it. That's how bad it was. And I realized that I'd gotten that bad because I didn't care about living. That I was going through the motions, I was overworking, I was just trying to get as much money as I could from my family, and I wasn't getting any enjoyment out of life. I was just sickened into death of all these years of pretending to be a man, concealing everything about me that was real. Trying to laugh at stupid guy jokes and going to sporting events that I didn't care about, cheering, one of the guys, and it never worked. So anyway, I made that decision. I said, wow, I got to change something. So I went home, and that night I started walking, 3 miles a night, got up to 10, worked an hour on a treadmill, went on a diabetic exchange diet. I dropped 60 pounds. And I started researching how to transition. I started buying Herbal estrogen. Some of you may be interested in this if you're not ready for real hormones yet. There are traditional treatments that women have used for thousands of years for menopause, because they're basically plant-based estrogen that would replace the loss of estrogen that brought on the symptoms of menopause. In China and Asia, it was called Dong Kai. In Europe, the herb they used was called blessed thistle. And in Appalachian America, it was black cohosh. So you can get all those at a GNC store. And I took them for about 1.5 years. And when I went in and actually went on hormones, I had breast growth that was big enough that my endocrinologist actually sent a nurse in to lay me down and teach me how to do a breast exam for cancer. So they do work. They do work. So Dong Kai, black cohosh, and blessed thistle. Okay? And with that, you take something called saw palmetto. And saw palmetto, which is often prescribed for prostate problems in men, because it is a testosterone suppressant. And of course, testosterone is what causes the growth of the prostate, causes problems in males. So you do that, so you get the 3 herbals. They can give you estrogen, and you got a testosterone suppressant, and it's all available without a prescription at General Nutrition. Okay, so if you're desperate, you can give that a try for 1 year or so and see. As far as dosage, if you start getting headaches, back off. That's about the only advice you have. Okay, and see what happens. Meanwhile, you should probably be doing breast exercises, isometrics, things like that, which builds up your muscles and of course helps with the projection of the breasts. Okay, so that's how I made my decision, and no gun to the head. But I'll tell you this. You have to be prepared for the absolute worst. You've got to face the reality that, okay, if I do this, I may lose my family, my wife, my kids may hate me, may turn away from me, my parents may disown me, my friends may all shun me, I may never be passable, I may lose my job, I may spend the rest of my life working in menial jobs trying to make a living, and all the time being laughed at on the street and being read constantly. Okay, that's your worst case scenario that could happen. Now the question is, are you willing to do that just to be yourself? Just to finally have the sheer joy of being who you are without playing all the games and pretending to be something you're not. And when you start out with that as your base, when things go a whole lot better than that, then you can really feel good. Okay, and they won't get that bad. But you have to be ready to accept that. And then when your family supports you, when your kids still love you, when your friends don't turn away from you, or most of them don't, or you find out who your real friends are, when you become passable, and when you have built a new career, I can about guarantee it, you probably will self-destruct your career. I was making $140,000 a year when I transitioned, and I was able to do it because I was on a 3-year contract that couldn't be broken. And no matter how much the president of the company hated me, I'd sold my software to him, so I was on as a consultant. There was nothing he could do about it. But at the end of the 3 years, when my royalties ran out and my consulting contract ran out, they slapped me with a non-compete agreement, and I was out of work. And going, what am I going to do now? So I dropped off the cliff from $140,000 a year or more, depending on royalties, and dropped down to nothing. And meanwhile, I'm living in a big house with 4 lease cars and needing about $8,000 a month to make my basic expenses. So ran through my savings, lost my house, lost the cars, moved into a cheesy apartment with my one son that was still at home with me, and went to work for FedEx for 2 years because they had good medical care. And so there I was working at FedEx, loading freight and working alongside lots of other women, and just loving it, just loving it. After about 2 years of that, I decided, hey, I could be a teacher. So I went back to school. And again, I had to work 3 jobs plus graduate school to get my master's. And those were minimum wage jobs, and again, working mostly with women. And just, I loved it. I loved it. I worked in an inbound call service center, so I kind of messed up my voice a little bit there because I was taking thousands of calls a day. Jackson County RMC, this is Rondlin. How may I help you? Yes, we are having an outage. The crews have been dispatched. I'm sorry, no, we have no estimated time on it, but the guys are doing their best. Well, thank you for calling Jackson County RMC, and so forth. And during the storm, we'd take hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of calls like that in a night. But I loved it because I was working as a woman. I was being accepted as a woman. It was great. I was going to class and being accepted as a woman. Everything was fine. But I wasn't rich. And then from there I went and became a teacher. And I just retired from being a teacher. And am retired. I have a 40-acre horse ranch that I'm buying. And I'm just having the time of my life right now. Okay, so that's the story of my life in transition. So, may do better, may do worse, but just be prepared for the worst. Okay, now making the decision here. I want to make a couple of points here. Transition is absolutely not about sex. If you think you want to be a woman because you've got these fantasies of how great it would be walking around with breasts, in some sort of constant orgasmic state of, oh my God, I've got breasts, forget it. If you're sitting there going, oh, it'd be so cool, I'll be able to wear panties and lingerie all the time, forget it. As soon as you transition your full-time, all that stuff becomes just normal. It's just clothes. You're not going to get a big turn-on from putting your underwear on in the morning, okay? Wearing a bra is going to just be, God, it's uncomfortable, it's too tight, I can hardly wait to get home and take it off and get comfortable and get into some sweats. If you think you're going to run around in micro minis, oh, look at me, I'm so sexy. No, 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 no. That's not what it's about. If that's the way you're thinking, you're probably a sexual fetishist, and you're best to stick with fantasies and cross-dressing before you start jumping on the hormone train. Okay? But if on the other hand, you've just reached a point in your life where what's most important to you is when you are being able to be a woman, cross-dressing in a home or whatever, that is real to you. That's your real person. That's your real self. And when it becomes so important to you that you just want to be that person all of your life, and not just for an evening or a weekend when the family's away, or when your parents are away at church or something, so you got a couple hours to prance around and cross-dress and feel happy about yourself. But that's kind of the difference. When it quits being about sex and it's just being about being you, then you're ready for transition, if you're willing to accept all the negatives that I've just given you. Okay, let's talk about what the process is. Obviously, looking at the videos that are out here on YouTube, there are a lot of young kids out here now that are transitioning on the fly. They're getting Mexican hormones, they're not having blood tests, they're not seeing any psychiatrists, they're not getting any psychiatric evaluations or any of the other things in the process. And they've had some pretty good luck on it, and I'm happy for them. But they are risking something, because overdosing on estrogen because you're not getting your blood checked can mess up your kidneys really badly. Not to mention you're wasting money, spending money for more hormones that you need. So here's the real official process. Okay, and that is, first thing is to find a psychiatrist, preferably one who has had other transgenders in therapy and he knows what he's about. You go to this person. They may ask you to take a personality inventory test. This is the Minnesota Multiphasic Personality Inventory, or MMPI. I've taken it twice. This test basically gives you a profile of your personality. They do not identify who or what gender you are when they evaluate it. It is sent off and it is blindly evaluated by somebody who doesn't know who you are. And so I took mine, it came back and it said, this is obviously a young woman with traditional feminine values, blah, 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 blah. They read my test as female. If it had come back and they said, well, this is obviously a young man with traditional male interests in sports and outdoor activities and blah, 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 the shrink would probably be saying, maybe you shouldn't be doing this. Are you really sure about it? Okay, so it's nice when the test comes back and it confirms your own self-image of yourself. In fact, I'm kind of pleased. I took it twice, both with the same results. One with custody evaluation. During my divorce, I was the first TG in America to win custody of her children in a contested divorce action, by the way. Won custody of all three of them. The other, well, actually both of them were there. One of them was ordered by the court as part of the divorce, and went out to the head of psychiatry at the University of Indiana Medical School, and very prestigious individual. And I took the test there, and she said great, and that she gave me my surgery letter, right there. Yeah, and she wrote a glowing report, that I was definitely feminine and that my transgender transition was definitely in order and should continue and so forth, because my wife and her attorney were trying to get the court to order me to stop electrolysis and stop hormones. They did get a stop that I was barred from getting SRS as an illegal disposition of marital assets. I had to bring a doctor in to testify that going off and on hormones was dangerous. So the judge bought that, and on electrolysis had to point out that if I stopped and let everything have a chance to regrow before we went in a second, third time, that it would just undo all the money I'd already spent. So he bought that too. Anyway, so then when we had the custody evaluation, I was given it again by that was $10,000 expense, by the way, for that custody evaluation. And they again found overwhelmingly for me as being the best mother for my children, declared my wife to be an unfit parent with an impaired grasp of reality. Also found out how stupid she was. Oh boy, I'm a bitch. And, you know, again, it was the most overwhelmingly one-sided custody evaluation I'd ever done. So, confronted with that, the judge had to give me my kids. And the kids all wanted to come with me. So again, because my mother was abusive. So, that was the first. That was good. Anyway, so I took the test. And the test is based on a 1940s Minnesota farm wife is the basis of the profile. That's how they defined a woman. And I hit that profile almost perfectly. And the psychiatrist was like amazed because he said, really, he said, very few women test that feminine anymore because over the years, the decades, women have become so much more masculinized and have had so many more opportunities that they don't test that traditional female anymore. They're more towards the masculine. And of course then you say, well, how does that work? You know, how could you be so traditional 1940s Minnesota farm wife when I'm an ardent feminist, you know, women's rights, all that. But I will tell you that if I had my life to magically live over, I would want to be one of those housewives with 4 kids greeting her husband at the door and just basically letting him run things. I mean, very traditional female. So that's my profile. So you go to a shrink, they'll probably give you the test. If the evaluation comes back, you know, female, he's going to be very inclined to sit there and give you your okay for hormone therapy. If it comes back the other way, then he'll probably try to discourage you. And you might want to listen to that and think if there are other alternatives. Again, you know, you can, if you're not really ready to transition, like for 20, 30 years I underdressed. I was always wearing panties and bras underneath my business suits. And that gave me a measure of comfort in keeping up that male persona that I knew underneath I was a woman. And so things like that are an alternative to self-destructing and going into transition if need be. Okay, so you get the letter from the psychiatrist, who eventually also have to give you the letter to approve having any kind of surgery done. So he'll give you a letter that you take to an endocrinologist. An endocrinologist is someone who specializes in, you know, human blood and enzyme and hormone levels and all that. And basically he's going to kind of put you through the ringer too. And he or she is not going to give you hormones if you walk in and he just looks at you and goes, oh, come on now, you just don't. No, you're not feminine. They can turn you down. They can turn you down. Mine didn't. Talked to him for half an hour and he said, okay, I agree with the psychiatrist. I've done a lot of TGs and you're good. You're good. So what he did was he prescribed 1 tablet of Premarin for me that day and a prescription for spironolactone. And spironolactone is a diuretic that has the indirect effect of suppressing testosterone. And often it is given to women who are having problems with excess of testosterone, you know, kind of the bearded lady type syndrome, you know, hair popping out on the chin and all that. So it's routinely prescribed for women who have overactive testosterone coming out of their adrenal glands. So that's your testosterone suppressant. They may have some newer ones now. Again, this was 20 years ago. He started me with 1 tab of Premarin. It was 0.625 milligrams. I came back in a month and they did a blood test and to see what my levels were. So he called me up and he said, okay, well, you're not up to female levels yet. Double it, go to 2. So I took 2 tablets a day. Came back a month later, he took another test. He said, still not there, take 3. So I took 3, which was 1.8 milligram a day. And next time I went, he said, perfect. You've got the feminine levels of hormones in your body. And we're just going to let you go through a second puberty, and we're going to let nature take its course. And that was his philosophy of how to do it. And it worked. I grew breasts. My body hair disappeared. It worked. It was fine. My breasts are completely natural. I'm a solid B cup. I might mention that typically you're about 1 cup. You can hope to naturally grow 1 cup smaller than your mother. So if your mom was like a double D, you might do real well. If your mom was a tiny B or an A cup, really tiny, don't expect to grow much because you're not going to exceed what your mother has. Okay? I definitely like the fact that I have my own and no implants, and I wouldn't consider implants. And had debates with this. We'll talk about surgery in another video, but there's a pleasure in having them be your own and not knowing you've got a sack of saline water stuck in there by a surgeon. Okay, just saying. Okay, so you're on the hormone train now, and it'll take typically about 4 years to go through everything and get your maximum breast growth as you can get. Next step for you might be sexual reassignment surgery, once you have your letter from your psychiatrist. Haven't had it. The only thing I've had was 6 years ago I had an orchiectomy, a castration. And the reason I did that was that I was now a teacher in a junior high on the Navajo Indian Reservation, and I was class sponsor, and that had me, I was taking groups of girls on field trips, and we were staying in hotel rooms together. And I did not want to ever have a situation where if I got outed, somebody would say, oh my God, we had a transvestite with testicles and a penis, out with our girls. So I went and had a castration, just so nobody could say that I was doing anything wrong with the kids. So that's what I did, and that's the only surgery I've had. Like I said, no breast implants, wouldn't consider them. The SRS was stopped by the court, and by the time the divorce was over and I'd blown about $70,000 on legal fees because I had to pay for both sides because I had all the money, and by the time I'd done that and was in, my contract was ending and I was dropped off the cliff financially, and it wasn't possible anymore. But here's the funny thing, it wasn't that important by then either. Statistics I've seen said that most TGs who have the reassignment surgery get it within their first 2 years. And if you don't have it within your first 2 years, the chances they're going to have it drop off drastically. And the reason for that is that by the time you've been full-time for a year, if you are passing and your life's going good, you kind of realize that unless you're really obsessed with being sexually active, and if you really think you can find a straight guy who will accept you as transgender, which believe me is tough, SRS becomes just kind of, why do I need it? People jump into it at first year because they think, if I have the SRS, I'll pass. Well, no, it has nothing to do with passing. It doesn't have any impact on your life at all outside of the bedroom. Okay, so think about that. Other people may go and have facial reconstruction surgery. About $30,000 or so out with Dr. Osterhaus or someone. There's a bunch of people doing it now. I feel about this the same way I feel about breast implants. This is my face. Good or bad, it's my face. It wasn't the most pretty face in the world, but people have found me not to be unattractive. And I still have guys flirting with me all the time, and I'm 64 years old. And I know it's my face. There's no plastic cheek implants up here. I don't have any metal plates in my jaw because they broke bones and messed with my face. It's me. So I'd say unless you're really cursed with the worst bone structure in the world, think twice about it. And a lot of websites and stuff now, it just seems like that's the thing. Everybody's got to have surgery, surgery, surgery. Surgery will make you a woman. Surgery doesn't make you a woman, everybody. Being a woman is about who you are up here. It's about what you feel in your heart. It's how you communicate. It's how you talk. It's how you relate to other women. It's how you relate to men. And if you've got that right, you pass. There are lots of women. I was out today, and I can tell you, I look better today than half of the women I encountered. And I don't consider myself to be very attractive. There are lots of ugly women in the world. There are fat women, skinny women, tall women, short women, people with big noses, women with deep voices. Okay. Just not a problem. And I haven't been read in 15, 16 years. Worst thing happens to me is as I'm in a store and a little kid comes up, like a 3 or 4-year-old, and he looks up at me and he says, "Are you a man or a woman?" And I laugh and I bend down and I say, "I'm a woman, honey. I've come from a very big, tall family." And they nod their head and say, "Okay," and they smile, and then I stand up and maybe exchange a few words with their parents, and we're all laughing about it. Okay, there. And I'm 6'2". You know, when I walked into my first support group meeting, the old pros in there sat there and wrote me off. They were joking in the corners. "Oh, this one will never make it." And the next time I came in, 4 weeks later, I was full-time. And within 3 months, I was passing without difficulty. And these same people I overheard talking to somebody else and saying, "I'm never going to prejudge anybody again because I sure blew it with Rhonda. I still can't believe she pulled it off, but she did. I'm not judging people anymore." So that's kind of the life there. Should mention, they're probably in your town. You can probably find some sort of a transgendered cross-dressing support group, and so you can get in touch with them. Probably your psychiatrist will know about that, and I'll get you in touch with them, and you can go to those meetings, and you can find sympathetic people and help, and go from there. Okay, so that's pretty much what it takes to transition and making a decision about it. So I'm going to wrap it up right there. Going to mention that I'm working real hard on some music videos, and they're still a little rough in the trials, so I'm not ready to publish them yet, but it's shaping up pretty good. So I have some guitar work and stuff for you. I'm a pretty good guitarist. So that's all. This is Rondalyn signing off, and thank you for watching.